Hey guys, good to see you.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Hummels. We're so grateful for you to make time to visit with us today and to share a little bit with our students. You know, we've known you for a few years now, but I'm excited to share you with them. So why don't we start off by you just telling us a little bit about yourselves and how you got into marriage ministry and relationship coaching.
Okay. It's been a journey. We didn't wake up one day and say, "Oh, let's work on marriages and let's be life coaches." That, had no idea that this was where we were going to end up. But it really started with a passion for for pre-married couples, and that comes out of our story because we really wish that we had more preparation for marriage. I think it would have saved us 10 years of heartache. And so we developed a program for pre-married couples to really get them started off on a healthy foundation. And with that, we incorporated mentor couples to help draw alongside them and facilitate the prepare and enrich. But I think we still felt like I wish we kind of capped out, and I kind of wish that we could do more and wasn't sure what that more was. And then God just kind of started to take us down this journey of being able to help couples in a deeper way. What would you say?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it was out of our own hurt and brokenness, especially in those early years, that God just put a passion for marriage in our heart. And so it's really been an adventure the last 15, closer to 20 years, really, that we've been working at this. And so Forever One was the program we wrote and the book that we published for pre-marriage, which was great. But coming out of that, it was like, what's next? And so coaching for us has really been the what's next.
Yeah, we saw a lot of still hurting couples and marriages still falling apart. And for us as Christians, we felt there's something wrong here, and, Lord, what can we do to help stop the madness, so to speak? So,
Yes.
Oh, that's powerful, guys. Thank you for sharing that. I always love hearing the story because there's always a God story in it. And I love that you work at your church and then helping others, equip others, which is obviously
Yeah.
one of the things that we get asked all the time by our students, especially as we talk about what it is we do, is they're like, so how is marriage coaching different than marriage counseling? Because we're not counselors, so how's it different?
Yeah, and it's a great question. I'll give kind of the textbook answer in that as counselors, you're looked to as the expert to help kind of diagnose what's the problem and then really give some direction or even some answers to a specific problem. In coaching, it's much more about helping the individuals in the couple to self-discover and really help them to get a better idea of what's going on. The way we do that, the main tool, is through powerful questions. So it's really drawing them out as opposed to trying to give them answers.
yeah. And counseling really treats symptoms. They'll look at the symptom and then kind of give you skills to help deal with that symptom, behavior modification, maybe prescription, whatever that is. Whereas for us, especially what we do is if we see the fruit is anger, there's a root. And so we're going to go and we're going to dig to the root, because if you don't deal with the root, it doesn't matter how much you try to change the behavior, you haven't gotten rid of the root, the root cause. And so it's not transformational. It's just kind of more behavioral changes. And so, so we like to be able to bring couples to a place of transformational change, not just learning a few skills to get by and improve. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. So when there's a couple that comes to you and they're hurting pretty badly, how do you know when to refer them out or when you think you can help? What are some of the key factors that you look at?
Well, normally I don't necessarily refer out unless I feel that coaching isn't working for them and they might need to start off with counseling and start off the discovery that way. If there's addictions that we're just not having a breakthrough here and I can't really deal with that, I don't really want to deal with that, then I'll point you to someone that gets help. what I've found for myself is when you pair counseling and life coaching together or relationship coaching together, it works really well because they're discovering some things in counseling, but in coaching with us, we're going a little bit deeper. We're not dealing with just the soulish realm, we're dealing with the spiritual side of it as well. And that is bringing about more of the change and more of the understanding. That makes sense?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think one of the things that we've learned in our relatively short time of relationship coaching is that there are deep needs. And I think we even expected maybe we're just looking for healthy people, healthy couples. And the truth is most of the people that came to us were not healthy. Mm-hmm. And it was not just giving them a skill or a tool. It really was addressing heart issues. Mm-hmm. So as Christian life coaches, we go there because we are spiritual in nature and created that way. So we really help the people to get in tune with their spiritual identity and look at their relationship with God. Are they receiving or are they blocked? And if so, how do we help them in that to where we can open them up, help them gain some health and growth spiritually to where now they have something that they have for each other as well. So that is, I think, a key difference between, other areas of coaching and relationship coaching, that you really have to be able to go a bit deeper when it has to do with relationships.
And I'll give you an example. This week, I met with someone, it's a relationship, but they're separated right now. And so she's been going through therapy and, doing all the stuff that she's supposed to be doing. And then paired with me, I was able to address the spiritual side of her. And there was such an aha moment for her, such an enlightening. I mean, in the 2 months since we first met with her, she's completely changed. And it's because God just really opened her eyes up to truth and, and the spiritual end of it. So being able to pair both, she's had discoveries in therapy, and then I've been able to take her a little bit deeper. So
I love that. Oh, go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
I was just going to add, I would say this, that we've seen, while some people have had good counseling experiences, we've also had a number of people that have been in counseling for years and never got the breakthrough that they were looking for. And in some cases, we were really able to help them, in some cases not. But I think the point is, again, when you really can get to touch that deeper place, a lot of times we've seen where counselors just have not been able to help people get that breakthrough.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that. Two things stick out to me. One is, I love that you're saying how you go deeper. I sometimes have kind of said the opposite, like, well, counseling is, a deeper thing. But I love what you're saying, because there is that spiritual realm that an LPC really can't get into because of licensure.
Yes.
We're taking the other thing is we'll talk about coaching as, although our base is coaching, that's kind of the foundation. It really is a high level of discipleship and pastoral care that go into that. And I'm kind of hearing that same thing from you guys.
Yes, absolutely.
Which takes me to my next question.
Yes.
So you mentioned, Lisa, a one-on-one session.
Yeah.
Do you see one-on-one or life coaching different than couples coaching, or do you see that really they go hand in hand, or do you do both in the same one, with the same couple? How does that work for y'all?
We started doing both because, when a couple comes to us and they've got issues, it's he said, she said, and you're spending the whole time between he said, she said. And so we found that, okay, if we can get them separated and just talk, let me just talk with you, and really assess. It's really an assessment. It's a discovery for them and an assessment for us in terms of where you at spiritually, where you at emotionally, because a lot of times when the spouse is there, they're triggering, or they're, that's not true. You get all this kind of, they're telling a story, they're not being honest. So let's remove all of that. Let me just, here we are. And then, then we're able to assess, okay, where do we go from here? We can do couple coaching if it's a specific issue that they have, then yeah, couple coaching can work together. But if it's this every time we meet, okay, we need to kind of do this one-on-one first.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think in the toughest of cases where there's really that kind of breakdown or gridlock, getting the one-on-one and really taking time to just listen and understand their story is so helpful for us as coaches, because in a discovery session with a couple, some of that may come out, but I think it's true that it always goes deeper when you can get one-on-one and they'll open up to you. And we've had cases where then we really got their story. We understood, you know, maybe areas of deep rejection from their past that gave us insight to how to help them. But if you didn't have that, it could be very limiting in terms of knowing how to really work with the couple.
Yeah, a couple can spend a lot of time trying to rehash the facts.
Yes.
You did that first, and that was the color of the paint before you did it, and whatever. And when we can get them one-on-one, we can get to why do you feel that way, and when did that start, and how is that impacting your marriage?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, why does it matter that you have to be right?
Right.
Why is that the main?
Yeah.
So if you have a couple that you're meeting with that maybe isn't quite as much in distress as what you just described, a couple that really is ready to be equipped, what are some of the things that you guys do to make sure they both get heard, or make sure it's a safe environment, make sure they share time well? What are some of your tricks, especially as you coach together? How do you manage two people in the room?
Well, I think we've had a lot of practice teaching together, you know, so it's kind of like learning a dance, and you play off of each other and you kind of learn how to do that dance together. So normally when a couple will come in, we'll ask a question, but we'll direct it to one person. And then when they finish, we'll direct the same question to the other person. Now, if there's interrupting, of course, we will say, let that person finish, you know, let them have a turn. And, you know, we'll come right back to you. We won't address that, but, you know, hold that thought kind of thing. And then if, you know, of course, I have some tricks if he's talking too much, or if I have something to say, I just lightly tap him or nudge, you know, kick him with my foot or something like that.
Like she is now.
Like I am now. That's usually the sign that, okay, time to.
Smash me across the
We
face.
have
so
the same
I-
thing. We just go like this, and that's a subtle cue.
Yeah, that's kind of our little secret. So.
Yeah, I would add, and again, because of the years we spent together, we love the dynamic of working together. It's really what was our heart's desire. I think this is probably pretty obvious, but we never ever going to take sides in a setting. It's not we're going to end up ganging up on one or the other, and we always view it as the marriage is the client. It's really what is best for them. We're not trying to just single out or even, you know, correct a person as much as we are what's needed for health for the marriage, and keep it that way. And the other thing I think is people can really relate as a husband and wife when we're both there. A lot of times if they hear it from one of us, they've heard this 100 times from their spouse, but they hear it from one of us as a point of validation, and it just clicks. And so again, I think the balance of us together with a husband and wife is just a really great dynamic, and I think it's one they appreciate.
What you're saying, Tom, is one of my greatest joys. I think one of the things we really find satisfaction in as well, that they find that validation or encouragement and the chemistry of having another couple in the room with you, not mentoring you like, hey, we've been ahead of you and we've got this together, but that true powerful question asking kind of presence. And I'm not trying to down mentoring, because I'm thrilled that some churches do that, but that coaching relationship is really different. What are some of the other joys that you have? What motivates you, or what, you know, just makes it all worth it? Because let's face it, marriage coaching is a lot of heartache, and it takes a lot of energy. What are the joys? What are the wins? What do you love? Why do you do this?
Yeah, I would just say, you know, for us, again, I think we know how much is at stake. These couples almost always are coming to us because they're in real trouble, or they know if they don't correct their course, they're going to be in real trouble. So just the sense of a marriage is at stake, many times a family is at stake, and while it still is not us, we don't save marriages, that's the Lord and the Holy Spirit that does that. But I think we just recognize the gravity and the importance of this meeting and our time with them. So we take it very seriously. And then when we do get a victory or a breakthrough, it really is a cause for joy. I mean, it feels real good to have been a part of that, see health and change in someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, just knowing that we are stomping on Satan's ground gives me great joy, you know, especially when we've got those victories and those wins. And, you know, a lot of times when we are sitting with couples and they're wanting to just, you know, state their claim and whatever, bottom line, it comes down to, do you want to be right or do you want relationship? And not only with your spouse, but also with God, because too often we're in control. We're in the driver's seat. And so that blocks us from really having a relationship, because love can't pour in, and God created us for love. We need to be filled so that we can give it away. And if we're just always in control and always trying to, you know, prove our point, there's no room for love. And so we really try to really send a message of love to our clients.
Mhm.
That is beautiful. I am trying to hold back tears. Why we do it too, for sure.
Yeah.
So you guys have talked about, you guys have talked together, and it's not just about tools, but it sounds like you do use tools as well.
Yes.
How do you balance a coaching session with giving them tools versus taking the entire session to teach a tool? How do you do that?
I think what we're still learning that, you know, and every couple is kind of different. There are some couples where we might immediately say, okay, we're going to do personality assessment, we're going to do prepare and enrich, and then we're going to, and then we'll stop there and see where we go. And with, say, for instance, personality assessment, usually that's, well, no, we'll probably start with prepare and enrich, basically to give them an overall of what their relationship looks like, where are they at, and to give them hope, to say that all of this is changeable. You know, these numbers can go much higher. And then we don't spend a lot of time with prepare and enrich, but then we move into personality and help them. And we do take a time, we'll take like an entire session to kind of go through the disc to explain it. But then we send them with homework to go through and ask each other, you know, just deeper understanding of themselves as well as their spouse, and have them discuss it. So that's, you know, that's kind of how we do that. And then we might go back when we continue to move on, then we may teach on attachment theory, just kind of really, are you an avoider, a vacillator, a controller, a pleaser, kind of help them learn what that means and the baggage that they brought in from their relationship, but also how does that relate to their personality. So we kind of do all of that stuff way before we get to communication skills, because we got to learn where all this stuff came from and what are the trigger points before we can actually have healthy communication. You want to add?
Yeah, I would add that, and you kind of touched on it, it's a combination of, in our time together, there are times where you have to teach something and really help them learn, but we don't want the whole time to just be us teaching. So we balance that with homework. Sometimes it's reading. It may be a tape that we give them to listen to, or a DVD. The point is, we do put responsibility on them outside of our time together. We don't want it to be just the time that the four of us are together. Most of the important stuff has to take place outside of our the time that we spend. And we put that on them, and we'll document and say, okay, here was what you agreed to do before our next session, and we'll make sure that they have done that before we get back together again. So they still have that responsibility of follow through and homework, so that we can keep a good balance between outside and inside the session.
And what we don't just tell them, we just say, would you like our suggestions? Because they do come. They come, just tell us what to do. But instead of telling them what to do, we'll say, well, there's a couple of options. a couple of different roadmaps we can take. We can do this and this and this and this, or we can do this, this, and we have them choose what sounds good. What is the most pressing need right now? And, we take whatever their pressing need is and say, okay, well, in order to, get this need met, here's kind of the roadmap. And so we basically explain to them what the roadmap is. And and we will tell them it's going to mean teaching some things, whether it's communication skills or some other stuff. But the homework is key so that when they come back, we have something to discuss.
Cool. I like how you keep them responsible for that, to hold them accountable to that, because that's one of the major distinctions of coaching versus counseling. The counselor is just going to keep receiving you and dealing with wherever you are. And coaching is about moving forward. And if you're not toe the line in between, you're really not going to get there.
Yeah. Which actually leads to the question I wanted to ask. Have you ever had a couple, I know you have, but have you ever had a couple really didn't move forward? Like, it was like, yeah, I'm not really doing the homework. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Complain. I mean, you probably never had that, I would imagine, but we've had that occasionally. What do you do about that? Like, do you just keep meeting with them, or what do you do?
I think I would say this, and again, of course, every couple, every situation is unique, but we'll of course try to encourage them to move forward. But if one or both is just not willing, we will say, look, this is all about you taking responsibility. And if they won't, we'll just say, then we'll put it on pause. And we had one couple where it ended because they really were not willing to move forward. So that's just reality. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing we've seen is if one spouse kind of checks out, then we have, in cases, been met one-on-one with the other who's willing to, if one's willing to continue to grow, we want to work with that. And that does happen sometimes in marriage.
And they might not want to grow together just yet. So, okay, fine, let's work on you individually, because that really is part of the journey, is you've got to discover what's going on in you and get the healing to move forward in you. And sometimes working together just brings up too much stuff, and too many triggers and buttons are pushed that you can't move forward.
Right.
Awesome. Well, guys, we could go another 3 hours, but our students won't watch it if we do.
Yeah.
So we are going to wrap up. Is there anything that we haven't asked or brought up that you're like, oh, but I really want to make sure your students hear this? So we really want to leave you guys with the last word.
Well, I think for us, we have done discovery sessions with couples, and we think, we started off with, oh, that's just kind of going to be a mini coaching session to give them a taste of what coaching is like. And I think what we're finding is that really what that is the beginning of our journey with them. And so instead of making it a mini coaching session, so to speak, it's really more of an interview, that we interview them to get to know them. And what I do is I say, look, this is for me. I want to get to know you. And I begin to ask them questions basically from birth to where they are now, and when they got saved, and what are some significant points and stuff like that. Because what I'm looking for is what's the identity they're living out of, and what are the points of rejection. And when I can see where those points are, then that helps guide me into, more understanding, but then also how to move forward for them.
Yeah, and I would add that in terms of how to work with a couple, and this would be true of an individual as well, we talk a lot, once we feel like we've gotten to know them, and we establish what we believe is a good game plan, and even what steps might be the right ones. But big but, it's always up to them, because we've even had sessions where we thought we were just going to continue from the last one, and something has changed for them. Mm-hmm. And so you always have this, I think, balance between preparedness and your path that you think they should take and where they're at. And you always have to be willing to say, where are we at here? And if something's changed, that you may need to take a detour. It may be totally different. So I think keeping that flexibility is really important. It never becomes just our program. It's always, what do they need, how we can help them. And yes, we have tools, proven tools and approaches, but how will it apply best with their particular situation and where they're at?
That's great.
Mhm.
Oh, guys, we love you guys.
Yes.
Love what you're doing. North Carolina is much better having you there.
Yeah.
Help it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for who you are. Of course, students, you can go look at their website and find out more about them and even contact them. You guys would probably love a phone call from a student asking questions.
Especially if they would like to become clients. No,
Yeah.
so what is your website? Let's just go ahead and make sure we say it. We'll put it in the video as well.
What our website is that what you said? foreveronecoach.com.
foreveronecoach.com. All right. Well, guys,
Love you
thank you so
guys.
much. We'll go ahead and end our recording. Thanks.
All right. Bye.